Machen wir das jetzt. Klappe, die erste.
Hi, I'm Maren Braun. I'm a TV presenter for almost 30 years now in motor racing.
My name is Alexandra Schieren, and I have been working in international motorsports PR for over 2 decades. And it is my mission to help you as a young driver to find the perfect media and PR communication channels that fit you and your personality.
So you can show who you really are and attract the attention of your next team and sponsor. Alexandra, it's so great that thanks to you, I have the chance to sit here in the middle of the media center in Bahrain. This is what it looks like at the Bahrain Formula One Grand Prix. And usually you are there at all these wonderful places, being responsible for the media centers, like, for example, in Bahrain, where I am, or in China, where you are now. And this is so representative for the topic that we are going to talk about today, right?
Yes, indeed. I used to be in all these media centers, but then I decided I wanted to sort of change my focus a little bit and not just run Formula One races. And then my focus shifted a little bit more to general motorsports, PR, and communication. And also helping young drivers, not like all of them or most of them want to be one day at a Formula One race and maybe be in such a media center and be at a press conference and be interviewed by media. And because that means you've made it and you have won a race, maybe. But before that, there is a very, very long way. And there's a lot of competition out there. So particularly young drivers or anybody starting out in a job, what do you do? And okay, they race, that's fine. And most of them just want to race, but you also need to do a lot of other things, one of which is PR.
That's true. And actually, this is our common mission that we have in motorsports, I think, that we want to help, especially the young drivers, to find out about what is important when it comes to PR, what is important when it comes to interviews, to media. How can I attract the attention of potential sponsors, teams, connect to the fans, all these things that happens mainly through media and public relations. And our common mission is actually to help the young drivers to find their style and their way of dealing with these things, and especially with all the knowledge you have in the world of PR and media work. It's you're the best person to explain them. What are the key factors? What is most important for a young driver to know about PR work, media work? What are the first steps they should do?
You need to understand why you need it. PR is public relations, which is the relation with the public. It sounds simple, but it's not as simple as that. So the job there is to help you differentiate yourself from your fellow competitors. And maybe you would think, okay, no, my job is to win races, and when I win races, everybody will talk about me, and that's it. That might be true, but maybe they talk about you they in particular, meaning here the media, for example, or even the fans, they talk about you in a way that you don't want to be talked about, or there is a different story that they don't know about because you haven't told it. So it's the possibility for you to tell people your side of a story. It's as simple and as hard as that, really, because if you don't tell your story, somebody else will, but not in the way you like it. Tools are many. So many will think, social media. Okay, today it is important. So it's one part of the whole thing. Again, social media is a very, very large subject. There are so many different channels, and it's not as easy as it sounds either. But apart from social media, there's lots of other areas. Media work I mentioned. So meaning giving interviews, not just to written press, but also TV. There's radio nowadays, there's podcasts, there's YouTube interviews, there's all sorts of things that you can use. And then it's the way, how do you get to these interviews? How do you contact media? Because they won't automatically come and talk to you. So that's a big part. How do you do this? And then there is, how do you talk to them? And that's your part. So how do I look on camera. What do I do if I don't like camera? So that will be your part. What would you tell people, a young driver who says, I don't want to talk on camera, I hate that? What can you do?
Well, I would actually remind him that I'm sure he loves to talk about what he loves doing, which is racing. So usually what they don't like is to talk about racing in front of a camera or knowing that many people are watching. But what they do like actually is talk about their favorite sport because they are passionate about it. They love what they do. And if you told them, for example, to tell their best friend about what they are doing, they would most likely react in a different way. So what I always try to do is to show the young drivers that at the end of the day, what we ask them to do is talk about what they love to do, talk about their driving, talk about their passion for racing, especially talk about what they experience when they are out there on track, to help us to share their view, let's say, through the eyes of a driver. This is something that only they know what it's like. They are the drivers. They know what it's like to drive cars at the limit and fight door to door on a racetrack. And this is an information that is really fascinating for the fans out there. They want to know what it's like to be racing out there, and they don't have the chance. Most often, they don't have the chance to experience it themselves. So I would always motivate every driver, and especially when they are young, they are discovering the world of racing for themselves. And if they are able to share this journey they are doing, to share their own fascination, to tell the fans what they like most or how they experience a certain situation, then they are actually very authentic because whenever you tell or talk about something that has an impact on yourself and that you're fascinated by, you do it in a very authentic way. And this is a nice mission, I think. It's not as difficult as they think. It's something that can be really fun if you have the chance to share your own experience and everything you're so enthusiastic about. Of course, also the bad things, yeah, you can share the bad experiences, but especially the good ones is something that helps also to keep the motivation up and can be quite fun,
Mm,
actually.
absolutely. And that's obviously not only interviews you give to media. I mean, it's every time you talk to people about your sport or about yourself, isn't it? So it's also even when you do a video yourself for Instagram, you sort of have to come across, or you don't have to, but how do you come across and how do you do this? And because some people are naturals and some people maybe are not, as we just said, and they need a bit more help actually. But also, I think, and I came across people who are very at ease in front of a camera or in front of talking to the media. And that can also be difficult because then you might say too much or you might say things
That's
you
true. This is why it's so important that you are there, Alexandra, because actually, usually you take the time, and I, of course, also. So it's good that we are both there. Um, yeah, I think it's a very, very important factor that you also have to know what is good to talk about and what not. And it's good to have somebody at your side who guides you a little bit, which could be you with all your experience and all the knowledge you have and all the different parts and topics throughout media work and PR work. And of course, also my experience in front of the camera to know what kind of situations you can be in, how nasty sometimes the questions of a journalist can be live on camera, or just to avoid misunderstandings also, yeah. If you have a clear briefing on what is good to say and what not, it's always helpful. I'm not a fan of telling young drivers or sportsmen in general exactly what they have to say. So I'm not a fan of just having like prepared sentences and phrases that you use again and again and again. There should be something individual in it. There should be always this view through the eyes of the driver. It can be a lively thing. It's good if you show a little bit also of your personality, also how you feel in that moment, because it's not always joy and fun. You can be really sad or annoyed or whatever after a race like that, and you can show your emotions, but you have to know how much you really show, especially when it comes to these situations when you are angry or when you're annoyed. It's good to have strategies to control these emotions and not to pretend you're happy when you're not happy, but to just know how to handle it, that in the end you don't say things that you might regret later. So yeah, but it's easy if you know how to do it, and this is what we are here for.
Exactly. So you need to probably train and get experience, and but it shows already that PR is not as easy as it sounds, and it's like everything else, it's practice makes perfect, and probably here as well. So if you look at as you mentioned before, the different areas, you have social media, you have the media work, but you also have uh, obviously the ways how you can talk to the public, and that is really anytime you are at a racetrack, maybe at a sponsor event, maybe even at an airport. So you always need to be aware that you are that you're a public person in a way, and people will recognize you, and so you need to have a certain way of dealing even with unforeseen situations. So, and this is actually, as you said, where we come in, and just to help managing these situations and help you, and that is the main purpose really of everything, to be different from your competitor in a way that people remember you, that your next sponsor like thinks of you and not of your fellow racer, that for anything really in life, if you want to, people need to remember you for something, and it better be good, obviously. So, and that will help.
That's true. And it's something very interesting you just said. You said there's so many ways to get in touch with yeah, with your audience, with the fans around, and also with the people you really need, like sponsors and stuff. Um, there are so many ways, and you don't have to wait until a TV team comes to you and wants to make an interview. So you can also actively search these situations, especially when it comes to the connection to your fans. Because when you're at the racetrack, actually, the fans are around everywhere. This was my phone. When you are at the racetrack, the fans are around everywhere. And it's so easy sometimes to connect to them. It can be even one-to-one when you're walking through the paddock, you know. If you take the time to sign autographs or to make a selfie on the way or to even answer a question, if you have the time and if you feel like it, then this can make a big difference. And also when you're on a stage, usually at the racetrack, there are these little events, you know, when you have autograph sessions and stuff, and some drivers are interviewed or you have the chance to say something on the stage. Be proactive to connect to your fans because they really appreciate. And I think the best example actually is now in Formula One, Franco Colapinto, who is a young driver, you know, who is really good and has done some very good races, but there were so many other drivers before him who did the same good job as a rookie in Formula One. And still they were not as famous as he is right now overnight. And this is, I think, apart from his good qualities and performances in the car, this is especially because of his very individual and particular way to connect to his fans, to talk to his fans through social media when he is at the track, whenever he is on a stage. You know, he picks up things and tries to communicate with the people, especially from Argentina, of course, who support him, in their language also. And he takes them through social media wherever he goes. And he always shares his experiences and his way to see things, to learn. He takes them with him on his journey into Formula One. And this is what brought the result that a whole nation is standing behind him and you know, always following him, whatever he does. And what do you think actually? is that mainly because his way of PR work and media work? Is that what a good media work can do in the end?
Yes, of course. It's different. You know, he's different from the other racers. He does it differently. It's his personality. It might not work for somebody else, but it's his way of doing things, and he really likes doing it. It's something that is natural to him, and so it works. And it also shows that you don't have to wait until you win races before you start doing things like that. It's actually the sooner you start, the better it is. And usually by the time you start winning races, if you haven't done any PR, it's probably rather complicated. And unless you're in Formula One, it still doesn't mean that people or the fans or the sponsors or the media will come and talk to you, because they might not know that you're there, because there's so many race series out there and so many things happening. So really, that's the other message: the sooner you start, and the sooner you understand that this is like a fully PR is a fully integrated part of your job if you want to make it to the top, the better it is. You know, it's just like having maybe a manager, having a physio, having um, I don't know, people who are there for you, and PR is a integrated part of this.
Hmm. And you just said that it may be that people don't know that he's there. This is something I want to take up now to ask you, Alexandra, what can young drivers do to make sure that everybody knows they're there, independent from their results?
They need to find the channels, the communication channels that work for them. So the channels they are happy using, it could be social media, it could be just one particular social media channel. It There are also examples, they are less common these days, but drivers who don't use social media are not as much, and people still know about them. It could be because they have a good, like they send information like a newsletter to their fans. It could be that they are very um easy to access when they are at a racetrack, that people actually talk about them and they don't really need to do this as much. And that can be a trait as well. And if you're shy and but you do it differently, and said you can, there are other ways of doing things, but social media is good, and it's always good to find one channel that works for you, and usually there is. And this you use, maybe like Franco Colapinto, in the way that suits you, because what makes you different is your personality. And the worst thing you can do is copy somebody because you think they're cool and it works and you do the same, and it won't. So you need to find your way, the things that work for you, the things that you are happy with, and just be yourself really as much as possible. I mean, it's not like, obviously, when you have a, I don't know, you lose a race or you have an accident and then you really want to insult everybody and shout at the world. It might be good in that kind of situation to breathe before you do that. So that's not what we mean with authentic, but there's ways of doing things. And again, this is where experience also comes into it, and learning things. And there are people like us who can guide you a little bit so you don't have to make all these mistakes.
Yeah, that's for sure. And especially being authentic in front of the camera. I know it is something that not only drivers, people in general may find to be more difficult than we often think. But on the other hand, I think everybody, really everybody, can be authentic in front of the camera, because we are authentic in our daily lives. So we have the ability to be authentic. And the only thing is to take away the strange feeling that we usually have when we know there are a lot of people watching, be it on a camera, on TV, or when you're standing there, at the racetrack, giving an interview and knowing that all the people around here listen to what you say, and you even hear yourself through the speakers. So this may be a very scary situation that makes it impossible for young drivers sometimes to be authentic, because they just feel like they have to perform now, and to be the perfect version of themselves. But this is actually not the case. What the people want to see is authentic people who are the way they are, with all their edges and their little imperfect things that we all have. Being authentic becomes easy when you find a way to feel comfortable in front of the camera, or knowing that everybody is listening to you, because you know actually that you don't have to pretend something or to act something which you are not, but you know that you found your way and your style of being the way you are, and this in the end is authentic. And once you feel comfortable with this is actually the moment when it becomes easy, because being authentic is not difficult. What is difficult is feeling comfortable with being authentic when everybody is watching. And this is the process where we can support you, because this is, first of all, training. It's a lot of training, you know, you just have to be to become used to this special situation, first of all. And then it's strategy. It's like having a personal strategy to know how to deal with certain situations, and to know for yourself what you have to do or what you want to do and what you don't want to do in special situations. Then you feel more comfortable, you feel more self-confident, because you know what you have to do. And this is training at the end of the day, isn't it, Alexandra?
It is, of course, but it is also knowing, as you say, what to do and what not to do, or rather what to say and not what to say, because being authentic again is good, but there are still rules that you need to know. And you, for example, it's very hard to say something negative about your sponsor because, I don't know, because the tires didn't work, and you still dependent on them. So these are situations where it becomes tricky to say or to be yourself, and still you are allowed to say things, but again, here it's very important how you say things. And also some drivers get away with it better than others, and that's sometimes because of their status. For example, somebody like Lewis Hamilton, he can say nearly what he likes and he gets away with it because he's Lewis Hamilton, but that's one person out of I don't know how many thousands and probably millions of drivers. So again, it's not as easy as it sounds. And again, training will help to navigate these situations and to become better and better.
Training and guidance, knowledge to learn what is important. This is what guides you a little bit through it, right? To know what is good for you to do and what not. It's always easier if somebody helps you to understand these things before you go there and make the mistakes and have to carry the consequences, which helps you learning also, of course. But sometimes the consequences are so hard that, yeah, it might have been much easier to know this before.
Exactly. And then also afterwards to help dealing with the consequences. That's also part of PR. It usually comes a little bit later in the career when your words really get sort of portrayed, and maybe sometimes even portrayed in a wrong way, or as they like to say, out of context. It is possible. So that's something you need to be aware of as well. Again, there are strategies, there are ways of dealing with things like that, but no situation is the same. So even though you've done it once, you might have to do it differently. But again, it will help doing it more often, which doesn't mean you really want to have crisis situations, but you need to be prepared in case it
Very good.
happens.
Now, Alex, I have a perfect question for you. Once we are sitting here at these wonderful media centers, which are somehow your second home, we can say. You're so familiar, so used to it. You know also what kind of people is in there and what, let's say, species a journalist is in motor racing. So the media center is usually where the journalists go to work, write their stories, do their research, prepare all the photos they took, all this stuff. It's like the center of all the media people who are out there at the track. But what usually, as a young driver, do you have to offer to catch the interest of the media people? What do they, the media people, what do they look for? What kind of stories?
They look for a story. So that is a story that is that hasn't been told mainly. I mean, taking the usual race story aside, that's something they talk about the race, say you won the race, then they talk about you because you won the race, or they talk about you because you had an accident and you didn't make it to the checkered flag. So, but that's sort of standard reporting, which we take out of this equation now because, yeah, it's just what they do generally. But apart from that, I mean, there's only so many races in a year, for example, and you want to be maybe in the media in between the races. And so, what is your story? And this is where you look at yourself really. So what is there something special about you? There's everything is well, every person has something special. So the way is to find this story. And it could be how you got into motorsport. It could be you have a special support. I don't know. It could be so many things. Or you have a um, like a for example, I have a driver I work with who has Asperger's syndrome, and they talking about this is a special story. It's not everybody's way to talk about things like that, but it's really you need to offer a unique story about yourself or about your point of view or anything that the media hasn't talked about, and then they will because it's interesting and it differentiates you from the others, and this is when they write about you.
And sometimes journalists don't even know that you have these special stories, right? So sometimes it can be a good idea to also actively go there and contact a certain TV station or journalist or magazine or whatever it is and say, okay, I have this driver here, and his special or her special story is this and that, and we can offer this to you. Are you interested in doing something? This is usually the kind of work that you do when you help your drivers. Actually, Alexandra, I think one very important part of your work also is to let the media know that there are some very individual and interesting stories about the driver. Because sometimes they don't even know they have this story to tell. And usually it's not the driver who goes to a TV station and says, I have a story to tell. It's rather that there is somebody like you or like the manager who goes there and says, okay, my driver has this and this story. I think this is quite interesting. Do you want to cover it? So is that what you do very often? And what kind of experience do you have with this?
Yes, it's part of the job. You have different tools reaching media. So one is the classic press release that you send out to a particular group of media at the same time, and the other is the media pitch, the story where you like call or contact individual media members and ones that you think that this particular story will fit, because not every story will fit every media. So you need to think who would be interested in that type of story. You can always also have a different angle of the same story. That's my job to think about that angle and what journalists would be interested in that angle, and then you call them or write to them. And yeah, and it obviously also helps that you know them. You have worked with them before, so you have an idea of what they do. You meet them at the media center, and so that helps, of course. Yeah, that's part of the job. And then it's the other part of the job where you come in again, and you need to, because it's also not only that you have a story, but you also then need to be able to tell it, and that's very important as well, because media pick up, or everybody will pick up very quickly if, for example, you just tell a story like like you learned it by heart or something. So that's where you come in, right?
Yeah, exactly. The moment when somebody gives you a microphone and points the camera on you, asking you to tell your story, this is actually the moment where you can show who is the person under the helmet. Very often, especially in motor racing, when we watch a race, for example, we don't see very much of the driver. We have a car and we have a number and we have a helmet design, which is very particular, usually for every driver. But um, only the moment when the driver takes the helmet off, we see his face. And when he starts talking, this is the moment when we can really learn about the person behind. and the way how he or she experiences his sport or her sport, and the moments of racing, and what is important to them, and how they felt in a certain situation, and what it's like. And this is actually all the kind of stuff that you can share in an interview. It's not only about giving a very pragmatic race report. This is one thing, but you can always share your experience. You can tell your story from your point of view. And this helps every fan, every team, every sponsor to find out who is the person behind. And it's important to know about personality, about the people behind, because this is actually what works in media. This is what the fans want to know. And this is what is interesting also for the media. And as you already said, whenever somebody has to tell a story which is outstanding in any way, because it's a special story in whatever way, then this is interesting for the media. They want to know it, they are behind it, and it gives you the chance to be seen, and to attract the attention of your next team or sponsor, and to make fans. I don't know why it's so difficult for me to say all this in English. If you have your own strategy for all the different situations you regularly, warum ist das so ein schwieriges Wort?
Schwierig. Regularly.
Regularly?
Regularly.
Okay. Stell die Frage nochmal. Das ist so furchtbar. Once again. Es ist echt krass. Oh, ich tue mir gerade total schwer damit. Aber egal.